faith stories.
My now wife Chelsea was like, "Hey, you're coming to church with me on Sunday," and I was like, "All right, I've been looking at the Bible. Let's do this."
Fishing memories.
When I first started, I was just fish, focus on the fish. And I see the kid catch a fish. I'm like, good job, perfect, awesome. And then he goes up there, and I'm like, we're catching slot snook, and this kid's up here going, oh, the breeze. I'm like, this is exactly what it's about.
Meaningful conversations.
You have to stay in the Word. You have to have a good support system. You have to know what the end goal is. You have to know who God is.
Positivity. This is the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Your hosts, Cam Steele.
If your identity is you're an angler, whenever you're not doing well in the water, that's whenever you can't be content.
And Robert Randolph.
And his timing is perfect. We might not always agree with it, and we might not always understand it at the moment.
Bring you interviews with some amazing guests from the fishing community and discuss all things to do with fishing and their faith. Welcome to the faith.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we have a fun episode for you this week. But before we dive into all that good stuff, I wanted to just do a little bit of housekeeping stuff. And first, Robert, how are you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. As basketball season's winding down for my youngest son, so he's got, I believe, 2 games left, and then baseball and softball are starting up, so haven't got those schedules yet, but, works good. Was able to get out and hit the work pond one time to no success, no bites, but it was still super muddy water. The water's still really high there, so, what about you? What did you get into?
Well, I was able to get the new Moken 12.5 out Saturday, and I will say, talk about high water, a lot of wind. It was a rough day in terms of fishing. I was out there for like 5-6 hours with 0 bites. And the creek that I went to, like, it's one that I've been fishing on since I moved to Raleigh. It's a one that I know very well, but it was like a completely new place. Just the flooding that they have had over the past month has been very apparent. The river or the creek banks were overflowed. There were full on trees in the mouth of the creek with their root balls and everything that weren't there a month ago. And I mean, it's just completely different from what I'm used to. So I was not prepared for that. And yeah, the fishing, I just couldn't stay in the same place long enough to do any kind of finesse fishing. And so it didn't end up being a great day in terms of fishing, but I did get to take the new kayak out and kind of learn a little bit about it. I did not instantly fall in love with it. It's going to take some getting used to. I have to relearn where everything is. I have to learn. I will say I will enjoy it a lot more after the summer when I can go out and tip it and flip it over, so that I can learn that point of no return and I can learn to trust my kayak again. Because it's very nice having such a high seat, but it is also very different.
It does take some getting used to, but you'll get used to it in no time. So
yeah, once I get that trust in that kayak, it'll be all over. But I will say, whenever I dropped it down into the low position, it was solid as a rock. I had 0 issues there. There were a few little minor things that I was a little disappointed in. The Unitracks on the the very back of the boat. I was like, oh, this is going to be, it's out of the way. It's the perfect place for me to put my, AR tube for my net. I reached back just to see if I could grab my net out of that. And I was at least a foot away from reaching it.
Yeah.
So I would say most, if not all, of the extra 6 inches from this boat to my last boat are in the back. The foot adjustable foot pegs are the like twist lock, and they kept coming undone on me. And I don't know if it was user error or something up with the boat, or if my pants leg kept catching it or something. I don't know what the issue was. I'll have to learn and play around with it and all that good stuff. But overall, it was a good paddling boat. It wasn't the Pescador Pro paddled much better in my opinion, but it's not that the Moken paddled poorly at all. It was just, it paddled different. It's a flatter boat, and it's just getting used to it. And I'm going to need a longer paddle. My paddle wasn't long enough in the high position. I learned that pretty quick. So
yeah.
Well,
you'll get those small things ironed out.
Yeah. It's just that the growing pains of learning a new boat and everything. And it wasn't like, whenever I went from the original Pescador to the Pelican Catch 120, it was nothing like that. I hated that Catch 120.
Yeah.
Going from, because I paddled with everything I had in that boat and hit 2.5 miles an hour. I was doing 3.5 in the Moken at a comfortable paddle. So it's I was telling y'all before we started, it's interesting. The Pescador had like a faster out of the gate speed and a faster top speed, but the Moken was faster at a comfortable speed. So in the Pescador, whenever I might be able to hold it for only 30 seconds, but I could get 5.5 out of it. Whenever I gave it everything I had in the Moken, I could hold 4.5 for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It just moves so much water compared to the other, but that's part of being 20 pounds heavier, and that's part of being a flatter boat. I was able to stand up in it. And I think by the end of this season, I'm hoping to be able to stand up and fish. I will say, I was listening to Bass and Brews with Ramon Outdoors last week, and Ramon was talking about the Pescador. He's got the Pescador Pro. His is the red one, and he was talking about not being able to stand up, and he's like, "Well, I have stood up in it, but I don't like it because it makes me move like Shakira." And that was very much how I was moving in the Moken. It's just I haven't found that footing, and I haven't gotten that trust in it yet, but I'll get there whenever the water's a little bit warmer and I'm not afraid of falling in.
That's right.
But yeah, that was that's how things are going with the new kayak. The sonar pod worked out great. So I enjoyed that build. And I guess the only other thing I've got for housekeeping is a previous guest of the show, Misty Wiseman. We'll try to remember to say a prayer for her at the end of the show too. But if y'all wouldn't mind just saying a quick prayer for her for healing. She's had a surgery, and she's having a little bit of a rough go at it in terms of recovery at the moment. I mean, I think the surgery was either today or yesterday. So, I mean, she's still in a lot of pain and everything. So make sure y'all shoot a prayer up for Misty Wiseman. But yeah, Robert, did you have anything else before we dove into the episode?
No, I got one more story for Saturday, but it pertains to our guest. So let's roll.
All right. Well, let's dive into it.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on the water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or visit them online at shopgetoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
All right, so this week we have another returning guest, someone I've gotten to know pretty well, and I'm excited to have him back on. And that is the tournament director for, if you were wondering why Robert and I both decided to wear our CCKF hats, that is because we have our tournament director on. So I am excited to get him back on. So Mitch, welcome back, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So if somebody that's listening did not catch the first time you were on with us, go ahead and give us the quick introduction and rundown of who you are.
Okay. My name's Mitch Lassiter. I'm a born and bred North Carolina boy, born and raised in Pittsburgh, and made the move over to the big city of Sanford when I met a girl that I decided I wanted to marry, and she didn't want to move away from Sanford. So I historically have fished Harris, Jordan, and Cape Fear River a lot. I was involved, didn't fish a lot as a kid. Like my dad wasn't a big outdoorsman. I had some guys in the local church there that I grew up with that would take me out to a farm pond, and we do worms and crickets, and Milton Seymour, he would take me. I always called him Uncle Milton, right? He'd take me fishing out there, and I loved doing that. When I met my wife, and my father-in-law has been a fisherman for a long time. He runs a small bass boat trail out of a church in Broadway, North Carolina. So I fished with him an awful lot. But looking for a way, my son and I were just looking for something, a way to get into bass fishing a little cheaper than having to buy a boat. And so we got we bought some Ascend kayaks from Bass Pro and started there and worked our way up. I want to say the first time I'd ever done a kayak fishing event was actually with CKA on Lake Randleman. And we were in our Bass Pro boats, and I was just in awe at the guys out there. Like I saw a feel-free lure for the first time, and it looked like it had a bass boat casting deck in there in the footwell, right? It was just a big flat boat, and these guys were standing up, seeing the wilderness systems, and getting, at this time Corey Dreyer still involved with CKA, but he was competing at that's the level he was competing at, so I met guys like Corey, met some of the other guys, fished a couple other events, actually ended up getting a bass boat, and we fished some bass boat tournaments. But the world was just different. The bass boat world was just a little bit different. So we ended up getting back into kayaks, and it was actually my son that kept pushing me. He was like, "Why don't you start?" Because CKA, was at that time was a lot of Greensboro and Randleman and lakes west of the Triangle area. So he was like, "Why don't you start one? Why don't you start one?" And I finally did start a trail. The goal was to one, just kind of get people involved in the Raleigh-Durham area, maybe target some people that had not done tournament fishing before, and do it at a lower price point. And, this is what happens every time. As soon as I start the trail, then my son's got busy with work and his marriage and all that. And he doesn't have time to fish any of the events. So now I've got a kayak fishing trail that I've started because he pushed me into it, and he's not even fishing it. So, yeah, we've been, I guess this is our, it's funny. I can't remember. This is our third or fourth full season, like having a full points event. We started the first year we did it with we just did three. We did a couple Wildcats, and then we did 3 real tournaments. And the turnout was pretty good, and that was just kind of proving the concept that it would work. And so we went into this thing thinking, hey man, if we got 15 people show up on a Saturday to fish a tournament, we're doing good. If we had 15 people now, we might cancel it for lack of interest. It seems like. So, it's been good. We've grown quickly and formed a lot of friendships out of it. So.
Yeah, I think the first time that I think it was the first time that we went to Randleman. If it wasn't, it would be the second time. But there was a time we went to Randleman, and there was 60 something, maybe even pushing 70 at that. And it took us a while. And the logistics, it was one ramp, and nobody expected there to be that many people. And you know what though? It was we worked through it, and it was a great day. And it was just like, okay, this is going to work. And
that was the first event of the first season.
Yeah.
Right. And just nobody predicted. So we actually had 73 people register for that tournament. And of the 73, I think 6 went to the other marina, not Southwest Park, but like to Lake Randleman Marina. And I think they had a great time. And then we had 60 some people trying to get down that single lane driveway down to that single boat ramp at Southwest Park. And but it's like you said, I mean, we got through it, and we haven't had an event at Randleman since then because of that logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And but we do have Randleman on the schedule this year. So,
yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. We'll figure it out. Yeah. But I thought that was, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think anybody expected there to be that many, and then it was just like boom. So yeah.
Yeah, and I will say this year, Lake Randleman is the last event of the season, so numbers wise, maybe not as high because a lot of people, they at that point they know they don't have a chance at the AOI, so they decide not to do it. But
we've seen it. I mean, we look at the data from every year. We start off really strong in March, right, and big numbers of anglers. And just, once summer hits and vacations and, you see a steady decline once you hit June, through the end of the season. So we had a lot of clamoring to go back to Randleman, and we had clamoring for Lake Gaston. So I'm like, okay, if people want to go, I'm going to get the lakes that you're begging for, but I'm going to do them late in the season and hopefully boost those numbers for the late season events. And if we still only end up with 35 people, then we're fishing 2 Great Lakes with 35 people, right? It gives everybody a good shot. So,
for sure. Well, we will get to this season in a minute. First, I wanted to talk about last season. So, what were some of the highlights for you last season?
Good participation, really good participation. We continue to have new people each season. Right. So, you'll lose a few, we lose a few people being Raleigh-Durham based, right? We pull in Fayetteville too. So we'll get guys that are active military. So maybe they end up getting deployed or getting moved someplace else. But every year we get some new guys joining. Probably the biggest highlight of last year was the AOI race. Hank Vajon and Will Lambert were just back and forth.
For sure.
Last season, and we had I did a live stream for CCKF talking about the upcoming changes for this year, a couple rule changes. But as I was doing that, I wanted to touch on last season and kind of do a recap, and I had pulled some numbers together. So last year, Hank came out and won the first 2 events back to back. He won at Falls Lake and he won at Lake McIntosh. Will did not even fish the first event due to a scheduling conflict. And so with our AOI, with our points race, you drop your 2 lowest, so he was dropping that one and then hoping he only had one off tournament in there. Hank did not even catch a fish at the 3rd tournament at Harris. and Will came in 5th. Well, then Will won the next 2 events back to back, Tar River Reservoir and the Raleigh Rumble. So now all of a sudden they're neck and neck, right? They're basically tied at that point. And we went into the 8th event at Heiko, and it was pretty much one had to beat the other. I thought that one had to beat the other to win that. Will took 3rd and Hank took 11th, but Hank still ended up overall. The Cape Fear event, Will struggled a little more at the Cape Fear event, and Hank's a river fisherman, right? So if any event Hank fishes, if there's a river or a creek feeding that body of water, that's where Hank's gravitating to.
Yeah, that's where I met Hank.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at Raleigh Rumble at Lake Crabtree back in the creek, right? So, and it's just funny the way that works out, right? Like the kayak community is that close that you can remember where you met somebody and what you talked about. And it's, I've always said that about kayak fishing over my experience in the bass boat world was, those guys are so serious about it. And they're trying to keep all these secrets, and hide their lures. And the kayak guys are the exact opposite. They'll tell you, this is where I was, and this is the water temperature, and this is what color of this bait I was throwing.
I'm catching them on these. Here's a pack of them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But the one thing that was interesting to me for last season was I started looking at their total bags for what they caught last year. And so even with Will missing the falls tournament, they were about 30 inches total apart across 8 events. Will's 7 events versus Hank's 8. But then I looked at, if we count the Clash of the Titans, which is our Tournament of Champions at the end of the year. I just wanted to call it something different. So if I looked at that and I included them, for the 8 events that Will fish, he caught 571.75 inches. Hank, in his 9 events, caught 572 inches.
Wow.
It was a 1/4 inch difference at the end of the season in what these 2 guys had turned in on their bag.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that just blew me away. Looking at their total length, No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at their total points. I'm sorry, that's not linked. I've got another column there I didn't label. So at the end of the year, they finished within 4 points of each other. Hank beat Will for Angler of the Year by 4 points, and that was just
that's crazy.
It gave us something to talk about all year, right? Everybody was posting about Will and Hank and who's going to catch them this week, and there's been a petition started that Will can't fish any tournaments at Lake McIntosh. But the funny thing is that I think he may have done well with like some CKA events, but for Lake McIntosh, Hank actually won that event, but Will did come in 5th. So Hank had 102.25 and Will had 92.25 at that lake.
The thing I love the most about that last year's Angler of the Year race between those 2 guys is their styles could not be more different.
Absolutely. Will's running live scope and Hank is in a pat, and Will's got, I think Will has a motor, but if not, he's at least pedaling. And Hank is in a Jackson, paddle only boat and has very minimal electronics on it. And
sometimes he does bust out his Bite FD, but but that's as big as it gets for Hank.
That's right. I mean, but they're Hank is a lot of Rapala type baits, right? Rapala crankbaits or a jointed. I know he throws a jointed Rapala a lot.
Oh yeah.
Where Will is, Will will throw a little bit of everything, and Will will tell you 100% what he fished on, right? So one of the events he was almost all shaky head, and he went through in that live stream that we had, what baits he used at different lakes. But both of them are the same way, right? They're both 100% approachable, tell you anything, help you in any way that you need help. And they were not so competitive against each other, right? They were friendly with each other the whole year, congratulating each other, wishing each other luck. And it just sets a great example for people that come in that haven't done this before, right? And that's why
phenomenal sportsmanship all the way around.
That's why I always say it's the camaraderie, not the competition. I think that it's the hallmark of CCKF and even CKA and the other trails, right? It's just the different culture in kayak fishing. So.
Yep, agreed.
All right. Before we get to this season, there's one thing about last season that I want to talk to you about. We've already touched on it very briefly, and that is the fact that mine and Hank's favorite fishery is no longer in the Raleigh Rumble.
I was toying with that idea. I didn't know I was just like, maybe we'll take this one off. And it got brought up because it was everybody was complaining last year that we weren't starting until 8:00, right? And that's what time basically that fishery didn't open. The gates didn't open until 8:00. Every other fishery we had, we could have started and got a top water bite. And I thought, okay, well, if we take that one off, we can start earlier. Well, Hank was very, very quick to step up and say, look, I'll just take the hit. If you want to start the event at 6:30 or 7, you can still include that lake and just have the caveat, like, look, you're not going to be able to start as early as other people. So I have definitely taken that into consideration. And then you also have to take into the fact that you have to look, we're trying to do a 5-lake tournament. And if we don't use the same 5 lakes, then we're going to the radius expands, right? Like, where is your 5th lake going to be? Are you going to go to Lake Holt or someplace, north of the Raleigh-Durham area? Are you going to go over towards Carborough to one of those lakes? And then it makes it very hard for those anglers to get back to a weigh-in. So honestly, I think I'm going to leave it the way it has been with the same 5 bodies of water. I was strongly considering the change, but we just throw it out there. If you fish this lake, there's a disadvantage, and you know what the disadvantage is. Maybe you start on another lake and then move to that lake. You can always boat trailer.
There you go. Lakes. Yep. Get you a top water bite and then head on over there after that.
Yeah.
There you go. Problem solved.
There's also the question of, I get to sleep in and get breakfast. Does that give me an advantage over you, who had to wake up at 4:00 in the morning? And
I'll tell you, that's breakfast is an advantage. I know that. Unless you eat the wrong thing, then end up having to beat the kayak somewhere.
So I said I had another story, and it pertained to our guest. So I will go into a little bit. Well, actually, I'll let Mitch talk some about what happened on this past Saturday, which, when this comes out, will be a week and a half ago. But as far as the cleanup, and tell us a little bit about what you guys did up there.
Yeah. So the weekend previous to that had been the CKA Winter Series event, where you could fish any body of water in North Carolina. And a couple guys had gone to Lake McIntosh, Rick Morris specifically, posted both on the CCKF group and the CKA group, said, hey, Lake Mac is in bad shape. Like, I've never seen that much trash on Lake Mac, given, all the rains we've had, the high waters we've had at all these lakes, and things had just washed in, I guess. So, I had posted, I said, hey, I've got a 16-foot metal boat. So we should do he had posted in both groups. I said, we should do a CCKF/CKA cleanup event, volunteer event at MAC. And Eric hit me up and said, "Hey, do you want to try to do that like actually this coming weekend?" And I said, "I'm not available that weekend." And looking at schedules and tournaments and all that, this past weekend was the only weekend really available that we weren't going to step on some tournament and lose people to that. So basically, in about 5 days, we put this thing together. Justin and Brad Faircloth. Justin's a tournament director with CKA, but they run a chimney sweep and wildlife removal service. Well, they stepped up and said, "Hey, we'll buy bags," and they bought these like mesh. I call it like an onion sack, right? Like you see onions coming, you can see through it, which turned out to be perfect because they, when you would throw trash in there, it allowed the water to drain out, so you weren't having like trash bags full of water. But we had, I believe it was 18 people showed up, including Brad and Justin. And basically everybody headed out on their kayaks. I was making rounds in the metal boat. And funny thing with that, when I said, "Hey, when y'all contact them, make sure they're cool with me having a gas motor in the electric only side. I'll only be idling." And we got there and I'm about to launch, and it turns out nobody had like cleared it with the lake. So I just went with, I said, "Well, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission."
There you go.
So I just went ahead, and nobody said a word, but we thought we had actually run out of bags at one point. We didn't realize that they had only given us like half the bag. So we had to go get more bags. It was 60 plus bags of trash. We lost track of the count. And considering that plastic is almost free in that regards, right? Like the plastic bottle doesn't weigh much at all. We had 652 pounds of trash that we collected in about 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
And,
that's awesome. The pictures and the amount of trash that you guys got out of there was amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew when Rick started posting that there was a lot of stuff on there. But then seeing it, piled up at the ramp and then on the trailer and just all the pictures of stuff. And this leads me back to my story from this past Saturday. So Friday night rolls around and I'm still trying to decide, because from where Mitch, from where we're at, it's a little bit of a drive to get up there. So I'm contemplating, I'm like, man, do I want to go up there and, or do I want to spend the Saturday with my wife, or what do I want to do? And, I said something to her about it. She's like, "Oh, you ought to go up there." And, of course, as soon as I said that, I'm like, all right, of course, I already had some of my stuff packed up. I already was going to try to go anyway. So I get up Saturday morning. I get up about 5:45, figure I can get everything ready. By 6:15, I can be pulling out and be up there in time to meet everybody. So I get everything loaded up. I hook the trailer up. We got the kayak on it. Fix me a cup of coffee, come back out to the driveway, and I do try to check my hubs and my wheels every once in a while. And something told me like, "Hey, man, it's been a minute since you checked your wheels." And I bent down and I grabbed the side of the tire, and I'd go around and shake it, and one of them, it was tight. I went around to the other side, and you could move the whole tire and wheel. And so I sat there and I looked at it for a minute. I already had stuff in the back of my truck. I couldn't just slide my kayak in the back because I had stuff from a cleanup that I had done in the back of my truck. So I went back upstairs, took my clothes back off, climbed back into the bed. My wife's like, "Well, what are you doing? I thought you were going fishing." I was like, "Yeah, the hub on my trailer's out. I'm just going back to sleep." So I went back to sleep, and I got up about 8:30, 9 o'clock and went and got a set of bearings. And I ended up changing the bearings and stuff on that trailer for the rest of the day and then messing around with the kayak. So I had all good intentions of coming up there and picking up trash, but I was like, it wasn't meant to be that day. But I am glad I checked it, because that wheel would have flown off by the time I made it to McIntosh. There's no doubt in my mind.
That's a good drive for you. So, hey, the really funny thing is Eric Nelson blew out a hub on his trailer on the way there. Like when he pulled in, he realized his hub was blown out, so he had to take it when he left there, he went to Justin Faircloth's dad's place and dropped his trailer off there. And I don't think he stayed that night to do it, but he left it someplace safe that he could come back and fix it.
Yeah, that's one thing about a trailer is, and it's I even actually went back and put bigger tires and wheels on mine to keep from having to do it so much. And last time I used it, we had gone to the beach, so I guess just going to the beach and back.
Yeah.
You know,
And see, I run mine's an old jet ski trailer that I converted, and it originally had 8-inch wheels on it, and I went to 12-inch wheels. I would like to go to 13 or 14-inch, wheels and tires, but I'm afraid I either have to change the axle or maybe at least change the hubs. These days it's hard to find 4-lug wheels bigger than 12 inches.
Yeah.
I could go to 80 mile an hour tires at the 12-inch size, but that doesn't help the strain on the hubs at all. So,
yeah.
One thing I was going to say though about the cleanup, when we came off the water, the impressive thing was all of those guys were saying I could have gotten twice as much as I got. Right?
Oh, wow.
We did a good amount. There was lots of debris, wood, that kind of stuff blown up in all those coves. And there was lots of trash in that debris, but you couldn't get your kayak into where the debris was. Like the one thing I said was, if I ever come to do this again, I'm bringing my chest waders, right? I'm bringing my duck hunting waders so that I could get out, and kind of wade through and get, but there was like, one guy, got a bicycle that was laying like on the riprap next to the bridge, and he had put it on the back of his kayak, and as he was coming under the bridge, the bicycle fell off his kayak and went down in the water. And I said, well, did you at least set a waypoint? Because that's structure now. Right? So I do know what bridge it's under, but I don't know where it dropped. And I don't know, Chris Gearhart flew his drone around a little bit out there too and took some videos. So if you hadn't seen that, I shared it on the CCKF group. Chris put it out himself. So that was pretty neat. It made me want a drone now. So
they are fun.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this season.
Okay.
So we've got Sharon Harris, Heiko Lake, Jordan Lake, the Carolina Classic is at Falls Lake, Lake McIntosh. We've got the Raleigh Rumble, Lake Gaston, Lake Randleman, and then we'll have the Clash of the Titans. So those are the lakes that we're hitting. What lake are you looking forward to the most? What event?
So I love Lake McIntosh personally. I like fishing McIntosh. That probably won't always be the case, but I've always, my best fishing days have been at McIntosh, so that makes me like it. At some point, I'll go out there and get skunked, and I won't like it anymore. I'm also looking forward to Gaston and Randleman. I've never fished Gaston. I've never even seen Gaston. So I hope I at least get to go up and pre-fish it before we have the tournament. But I'm looking forward to both of those. I always, as the tournament director, I always look forward to the Raleigh Rumble. I try to kind of promote that as our flagship event. It's the only multi-lake event that we have. And that's something that every club at this point pretty much has a multi-lake event. Foothills does their reservoir battle where I think there's 2 lakes they can pick from. You've got Gate City Classic. I think CKA kind of set that multi-lake up for us. And so the first year I didn't even consider it. The second year I said, I want to do a multi-lake. And so we did it. And it went, I didn't know how it was going to go because, you look at like Lake Raleigh is a tiny, tiny body of water. Lake Johnson is decent, but it's not large. Wheeler is, I guess Beaver Creek would be larger than Wheeler, but Wheeler is a decent sized body of water. Crabtree is usually muddy, and I've never personally caught a fish at Crabtree. And then you've got like I said, Beaver Creek at Falls. So you've got a wide variety of water to fish. It's people always say, well, Lake Wheeler is going to win it. But last year when I did the numbers, the fish per angler and the average size fish were pretty much equal for Beaver Creek, for Fall. I mean, basically for every body of water, it was really even. It just so happened that a couple of the guys in the top 5 were fishing Johnson, right? And they just happened to get on them. But same thing at Wheeler, right? Those tend to be the 2 strongest. But then when you get Hank on Crabtree, he always creeps in there. So.
And the year before last, Lake Raleigh had a good showing. I know James came out of nowhere with like 92 inches or something like that.
Yeah, and then he didn't fish. Did he fish last year? I think he fished last year and went to Wheeler.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd have to go back and look, but I was surprised. I'm surprised he wasn't back at Raleigh trying to do that again. So.
Raleigh has changed ever since they sprayed the grass. It's a completely different lake. I don't like it anymore.
It's I like it, for a Saturday morning, fun fishing. It's easy to get in and out of. It's not crowded. You're not fighting any boat traffic. I like it for that. It actually has a ramp as opposed to like Johnson, where you're having to put your stuff out on the sidewalk and drag it over to that beach. But I fished Wheeler for that CKA event. I went to Wheeler. But nobody had a great day on that CKA winter event because it was. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to open this door behind me and let this dog out before she goes.
All right.
Crazy.
All good.
Yeah, that first CKA event, I zeroed. I didn't even catch. I don't even think I got a bite that day. But that was a tough day. Anytime you're fishing in the wintertime, unless you have been fishing consistently and you have something that you've been on, it's tough to just go out there and find them on an off winter day. You got to be fishing consistently and kind of know where their wintertime haunts are.
Yeah, even on your home lakes. It's hard to just.
KVD lied to me at the Bass and Saltwater Expo. He sat there and told us all to throw a jerk bait. I jerked a jerk bait till my arm was sore. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk predictions for this season. So what lake or what event is going to have the biggest bag?
I definitely don't think it'll be Harris. I'm gonna say Heiko, maybe. Heiko. Well, no, because everybody's going to catch fish at Heiko, but they're going to be small fish. We're fishing McIntosh in June, so I don't know that that's quite the heat of summer yet, but it's definitely post spawn. I'm going to throw a wild prediction out there and say Randleman in September.
Interesting.
Get a big fall bag.
But what about you, Cam? What do you think the biggest bag is going to be? And then I'll throw my pick out there.
The way Jordan has been fishing the past year, Jordan in April, like middle of April, I'm not going to bet against it, man.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's on Jordan.
Yeah,
there are some monsters in that lake, and it has been fishing like it has monsters in it. I mean, everybody, like kayak tournaments and boat tournaments, have had some really, really, really good tournaments. in Jordan, and I think there is a particular strategy that is going to end up with a massive bag on Jordan.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's what I was going to go with too. So
I'm going to try to get some guided fishing trips from Seth Mico out on Jordan, like in the month of March, and then hope that pattern holds in April.
yeah, can't go wrong.
And that's we're the weekend after the Hobie BOS on Norman. The BOS is the week before that on Norman. That
okay. All right.
So that's going to affect our fishing. I was just thinking about schedule wise.
Mm-hmm. Your best guess for AOI this season. Now, keep in mind, I am not signed up for AOI because I've got a baby on the way, so it's not going to be.
Well, it's
if there was ever any chance.
It's not everybody's signed up at this point. I think Hank and Will, you can't say they're not going to be strong again. I think you'd be silly to think they're not going to come back in and be strong again. I'm looking at, I'm pulling up a sheet here. Let's see. We've got Jeremy Way came on pretty strong last year as well. He won an event, took second in another event. He won Jordan, came in second at the Raleigh Rumble. Garrett Chavis, young guy. He's around 18 or 19, I think, at this point. And Luke Greco, both of those guys had strong years last year. So I think they'll do well. I'm going to say, that's 5 guys: Hank, Will, Garrett, Jeremy, and Luke. I think they're going to be definitely contenders.
Yep, I agree.
I don't think I can pick who's going to do it, but as Robert and I had said, before we went live tonight, is one thing is to be there, right? If you look at the guys that qualified for BASS last year, those basically all you had to do was fish all the events, like be in the AOI and fish all the events, and you qualified. So everybody's got a chance, right? It's everybody's going to have a chance, but I think you're going to be fighting those 5. As long as all 5 of those guys are fishing with us again, you're going to be fighting those guys. Alex Sterling, is a strong angler. If he's signed up and he's serious about it, he's going to be one to contend with. And he, his only downfall is he doesn't have any time on the water, it seems like. I never see him on YouTube or Twitch or anything fishing. So I don't know. He's going to be like a novice.
Yeah, it's a crazy, he spends a crazy amount of time on the water, and he's really, last year, that's what I was going to throw in there for a 6th name, and you brought it up before I could get it in there. But I think you're going to have to watch out for him. I think if his rate of improvement, for 2024 is the same from 22 to 23, he's going to be right there.
Yeah, for sure.
He studies it.
Yes, sir.
He's studying what he's doing. He's studying fish patterns, right? He's not just out there fishing. He's learning. And Hank talked about his fishing journal that he keeps.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, I don't think he's journaling it, but I know he's going back and reviewing the footage that he's captured, right? And looking at, this is what I was throwing at this water temperature in this type of weather. He's making notes. So.
Absolutely. And the only other name that I'm going to throw into this, because I think y'all have all hit it on the head so far, I'm going to throw Dontrell Sullivan into that too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
That guy, I I think he's going to end up spending more time on the national side this
Right.
season, and we'll probably end up missing a lot of CCKF events because of that. And that's going to be
He missed a lot last year for the same reason, right? For KBF and
but
those
that dude can
events.
fish.
So hopefully we don't conflict too much, because if you could get the 7 of those guys battling it out, then you've got a really fun season, and we don't even know who else is going to come on strong, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we saw it last year. I never really thought about how much of a difference it really made, but we saw it last year. Momentum plays a huge part in this
Oh, yeah.
sport.
No doubt.
confidence, right?
For sure. So are we doing the wild card again this season for the
definitely. That's been very popular. Definitely going to keep that up. We're going to do it regardless. I did throw it out to somebody the other day, like, hey, I could use a wild card sponsor, because somebody was asking what sponsorships we had available, and they asked, and I'm like, well, basically, if you can either donate money that we'll use to buy gift cards or something, or you can provide gift cards, or if you've got some kind of prize or gift that's around, like a $25 value, somewhere in that range, that you can donate, for tournaments. But yeah, we're definitely either the club is going to do it, or I'll find a sponsor to do it. But yeah, that's been a fun one, right?
Okay.
And it gives you a chance, because
Yeah.
we've all been out there and caught a really big crappie or a catfish when we were bass fishing. So it gives you a little something to.
You have a favorite pick for what lake is going to produce the biggest wild card?
I don't know anything about Gaston. I do know that they have big catfish tournaments there. But I don't know if you know this, at Lake Gaston and Jordan Lake and any of these lakes with a dam, they've seen catfish. Divers have been down and seen catfish at the base of the dam, the size of Volkswagens. Just insert the name of your favorite lake there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's say what month are we? Let's say we're going to have more people at. Hopefully, we'll have a lot of people the May 4th at Falls. So I'm going to guess and say it's going to come out of Falls.
Yeah. I was going to go with Gaston. I've only fished Gaston a couple of times, but both times I've been fishing for catfish.
Well, now, had we had wild card at Harris the first year, I'd have taken it for the year. I think I caught a bowfin that was longer than my catch board, or I had a hog trough at that time. But I basically held the bowfin up here and held the board up here, and the fish was much longer than my board was. I mean, that thing was a monster. And I was sight fishing for it, didn't even realize it was a bowfin. I could just see something in the water in the pads, and I kept throwing in there. And then when he hit it, I was like, boy, I made a mistake. And I don't like touching those fish, but man, that was a monster.
So I am going to I'm looking at the list here. I don't know much about Heiko or Randleman. I don't know much about those. But I think I'm going to say Falls. Robert, didn't you catch a gar in Falls?
Yeah. So it was on one of my videos that I went way back in the I think Mitch, you put it in the same ramp that day too.
Yeah.
And well, actually, I think it's when I was pre-fishing the day before. It was the day before the tournament, and I went all the way back under the bridge and around. There's like I think it's after you go under the bridge. There's like a really sharp 90-degree turn at up in the and there was 15 or 20 gar, up at the top sunning. And those jokers were, they were as long as my arm. They were big. I never caught one of them, but they were everywhere up there.
Okay. I'm going to say Falls. That being said, I have personally, with my own eyes on Lake Gaston, seen catfish that could eat Hank Vajon.
Hank, watch out. Be careful when we go to Gaston, man.
I mean, I don't know what it is about that lake, but the blue cats that they produce are just ginormous. Now, I don't think obviously odds are if somebody gets a hold of one, they're not going to be able to land it. It's
Yeah, if it's one of those huge ones, yeah, on bass
much
tackle.
less get it onto your catch board.
Yeah. I don't know that if they do land it, I don't know if we would require the measurement, right? Just as long as we get the picture, I think we could understand how big it is.
That's one of those. Just touch the leader. Just touch the leader.
Yeah. If anybody that's listening to this or watching this hasn't watched kayak catfishing, that dude is on point, and he catches monster catfish, and he is one of the best. He's one of the best at making you feel like you're in the kayak with him because he's talking the whole time. He's narrating what he's doing. He's very easy to watch and very easy to listen to. And, I watched several of his videos, and he catches some monsters out of his kayak, and it's
Awesome.
very good channel to watch.
Awesome YouTube channel. I will say it's difficult to relate to him because he's picking up 20-pound fish saying there's another dink.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
What area is he? Where is he located?
Central Tennessee.
Yeah, I think he's in Tennessee. Yeah,
I've seen some guys out on like Tillery and Baden and High Rock, but mostly on Tillery. It seemed like I saw these guys videos kayak catfishing out there, and just getting towed. Once they hook into them, they're just getting towed around. But they're sitting out there in the middle of the night, right, with their lights all over their boat. And I was like, man, a John boat would just be a little safer at that time of night.
I'd be afraid I'd go to sleep and just fall off the side.
Right.
Awesome. Well, last prediction. What event's going to have the biggest turnout?
The Carolina Classic is an unknown. That's a 3-club event. It's CKA, CCKF, and Foothills. So I'll even venture to say it's not even fair to compare that one. So just based on historics, I'll say the first event at Sharon Harris. I think we'll definitely see 65 plus for that event. We've been the first 2 events last year. We're like 65, 70 people. Everybody's itching to fish the first event of the year, right? We've just come through the winter. It's just hopefully it'll be warming up a little bit at that time of March.
Yes,
and so I think we'll have a strong turnout, even though half of them will complain about it being on Harris. And I'll be right there with them because that lake is my nemesis. So.
You never can tell though. If you catch it on a warming trend that stays warm 4 or 5 days before that, and it brings them up close to the bank,
right?
I mean, you have a chance there. There's some big fish there.
That's
so
the
you have a
only time
chance.
I do well is
yeah,
up close.
Yeah,
and reeds.
It's always a difficult lake for me, at least. Whenever it's a pelagic lake, like Sharon Harris, they're pelagic fish. They're not typically up on the bank like you said. They're migratory. They're out in the main channels and suspended. And if you know anything about me, that's not my jam. So
I'm a shallow water fisherman. That's just what I am. That's how I grew up fishing, and I've learned a little bit, from some of these guys that we're fishing with. But
I struggle in the if I can't get into a creek somewhere, I struggle. So I relate very much to Hank. There's a reason we like the same places. All right, man. Well, we have hit the hour mark. So let's do our version 2 of what's your favorite. We've got a whole new set of questions for you. So let's do that.
All right.
It's time for What's Your Favorite, powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. Power that fits in the palm of your hand.
All right, let me pull out my cheat sheet here. Robert, you already got yours pulled out?
Oh yeah. So
All
I'll
right.
start it out. What's your favorite character from the Bible?
I think it's, I think I tend to relate to David, like the young David, right? David and Goliath David. Because what you've got is a young kid that's faced with this overwhelming task, right? He's faced with this overwhelming thing that he's got to overcome. And on one hand, you take his background of being out watching sheep, right? And he's training with a slingshot, right? He not for any great purpose other than to protect those sheep, right? But then he takes that he's the God has been preparing him for, right? And he's got this skill, and he's able to apply that skill, in a mighty way. And you could almost say then the people become his sheep, right? And he's protecting his people from Goliath. But I've heard it preached, and I do kind of believe this. I mean, the Lord prepared him, but the Lord also helped him, right? The Lord didn't take that stone and put it in Goliath's forehead, right? David's years of practicing out there with their sheep prepared him for that. And so, I sometimes I think we are toiling away at something, and why am I doing this, and why am I doing this? But you never know when you're going to round that corner, and there stands that Goliath that you're going to be able to use that skill that you've been developing, for some unforeseen reason up until that point. So I tend to relate to that a lot, and to him a lot.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And before we go too much further, I did want to mention this is What's Your Favorite, powered by Nakwa Adventure Gear. So this is Central Carolina Kayak Fishing. This is an awesome North Carolina-based company that gets that powers our fish finders and lights and all that good stuff. So if you're in need of a 12-volt battery with easy connectors and waterproof connectors, waterproof battery, all that good stuff, check out nakwa.com. That's NOCQUA.com. And yeah, they've got lighting, batteries, connectors, all that good stuff. And they've got the power bank with the splash pack or stash pack, or it's one of those two. But that's the USB like portable charger that has become a staple for me. So definitely check them out, and email info@nakwa.com and let Heidi know that that Faith and Fishing sent you, and it will be worth your while. All right. So your favorite Bible translation, Mitch?
I think maybe New Living Translation. That's in the Bible that I carry now. A modern take, and the thing about this specific one that I have, though, lots of footnotes and everything to take you back to the original Greek and the original Hebrew to help you understand. But there's also, King James. I like the form. You want to call it the formality of it, the history of it. But it does get hard to read sometimes. So the combination of the two is nice to have, so you can kind of read the two different translations. But the internet's made it so easy now. You can just go to like Bible.com and pull something up, and you switch between different translations, and it allows you to, I think, gain greater insight into what you're reading. So.
Yeah.
For sure.
And what about your favorite book of the Bible? If you had to pick a book, what would be your favorite?
That's tough. It's definitely not begat, 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 where they're going through the lineages. One of the four New Testament Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. They're all happening at the same time. A lot of them are dealing with this. There's lots of stories that occur in multiple of those, which is why I don't single out one or the other. But that's where our hope comes from, right? That's where our hope starts, is when Jesus comes, right? And we're in that when Jesus is walking and talking and it's him face to face with people, right? And he's performing the miracles, or his disciples are performing the miracles. But I think I'll go I think I will narrow it down and go beyond that. Let's say the book of Acts, right? Because Acts is where faith is put to action, right? These are the things that occurred. The day of Pentecost is in Acts. All those. So yeah, I think when we start seeing action and things happening, I like the book of Acts.
Absolutely. I love the view we get of the origins of the Christian church, and what the origin, or what the early church looked like, and how things worked for them, and all that kind of stuff, for sure. All right. Your favorite time of day to fish?
Early morning, sunrise to 9 or 10 a.m. I like evening as well, but being out there when all creation is waking up, right? You're out there and it's silent, and then all of a sudden you hear one or two birds chirping, and then you hear them. It's got nothing to do with the fishing a lot of times, right? It's just hearing nature wake up. And but that topwater, my favorite bite is a reaction bite, right? And nothing beats a buzz bait or a popper or a frog when something blows up on it, and you get the visual along with the physical feeling in the rod, right? That's my favorite.
Yep, I agree with that. Let's see, favorite lure color.
Something light, something not so much match the hatch, but I throw a lot of white or white and chartreuse baits. I have a lot of confidence in those two. I actually got frustrated one time, and I said, we're putting too much emphasis on color, and I've got too many color baits. And I said, I'm not going to buy anything unless it's white or black, right? Like that, the two extremes. And I don't even throw, I throw a black. Who doesn't throw a black and blue jig when you're throwing a jig? But I just do tend to end up throwing a lot of shad-ish color baits. So most of the lakes I fish are shad lakes anyway. So.
All right. Now we move into the important stuff, Mitch. What's your favorite pizza topping?
You have to. I'm kind of boring when it comes to foods, right? I was talking to Robert earlier about like at Thanksgiving, and you get all these fancy desserts, and I'm like, can we just not make like just a plain dessert? So I have to stick with just like pepperoni, right? Like beyond the cheese, pepperoni is the staple that you can put on a pizza, and nobody really turns it down.
Yep.
It's a safe answer, but it's one that is a good one. No complaints here.
We could do a whole podcast on pizza if we want to get into that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm down with the pepperoni, and this is probably it has become one of my most favorite questions in this second round of questioning. But what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Oh, wow, of all time. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know if y'all can tell the age. I can take off my hat and you can see the lack of hair. But growing up in the 80s, the 80s was really when I was like self-aware, right? Like I was born in the 70s, but the 80s when I grew up. So we had things like, we had all the original shows that they're trying to remake now and ruin. So Magnum PI, the A-Team, all these things that are coming out now. I may or may not have planned my college schedule around when the Magnum PI reruns were on. So, yeah, that and even like Battlestar, it's got to be between Magnum PI and Battlestar Galactica, right? Two kind of opposites, but two that I don't think I ever missed an episode of. So.
Yeah, I like Magnum PI is a good one. That's a good one. I think Fall Guy's right up there for me with Magnum PI.
I was really expecting MASH for some reason, but
I watched it, but I never was into it. But Robert, did you see there's a remake of Fall Guy coming out?
No, I didn't even know that. No.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling.
Huh.
Thing, and it's sadly, I think it's another. I think
they're ruining it. You can't. Right? Yeah, you can't.
Going in a different direction.
Some of those TV shows are not made to be remade.
That's right.
And you just can't. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's start wrapping things up. What's coming up next for Mitch?
From what standpoint?
For CCKF.
For CCKF, yeah. Let's see. I've still got some administrative stuff to take care of. Right, we've got hats for sale up on our website right now. We've had these embroidered hats in the past. This year will be leather patch hats. The sample that I got looked really good. I had an arrangement with a clothing company to do. They weren't going to be jerseys; they were going to be the hooded UPF shirts. But they were going to have, we were going to have all the sponsors on the front, just like a jersey. And they've had some family issues and things come up. Some stuff occurred in the family, and they can't meet the commitment. So I'm scrambling now just to get with a jersey company and get some new CCKF jerseys made up so that I can rep our sponsors at the tourneys and fishing expos. I like to wear them to fishing expos and things like that so people can see. But some of the anglers like to buy them too, right? So working on those, just getting ready for March. I will say this: I made a post about BASS a while back about how you will not qualify for North Carolina BASS through any trail this year. It's just going to be an open tournament this year. Next year, it'll be a little bit different. I don't know all the details to that, but expect some kind of qualification to go to the BASS next year, the North Carolina BASS. So myself and Eric and Foothills, we just feel like it's saying that you can qualify for something through the AOI is kind of like an added selling point, right? It's not, you're not just fishing to win the AOI of that tournament. So what we look to do was offer something where you can have a further competition against the top AOI of other clubs. And so what this year we're doing the Carolina Classic. It's the 3-club tournament. But what is going to happen is that when you sign up for AOI now, what you're qualifying for is next year Carolina Classic is going to be the top 10 from each club in a larger format tournament. You don't go past that Carolina Classic, but we're basically looking at creating a North Carolina Bass Fishing Championship. And I mentioned to Robert before the tournament, we've had the NCBASS, but it seems like no one viewed that as a tournament in itself that carried any weight, right? It didn't seem like somebody said, I want to win the NCBASS and be the North Carolina BASS champ, right? They created those standings last year that they ran where they took all the point who won tournaments at different trails, and you kind of saw who were the better anglers in North Carolina. We just want to offer a tournament that just says, I'm the North Carolina champ. And so we've created the Carolina Classic Championship. It'll start in 2025. Like I said, 10 anglers from each club. But we're not just saying it's our 3 clubs. Like Eric has reached out to Queen City and said this to Vinny. We've got Port City getting started down around Wilmington. The only real requirements for this is we don't want somebody to go out and start a club with 10 guys and then all 10 guys, come fish this. So we are saying that the club, and these are just preliminary rules right now. They might change, but we are saying that each club must have either 20 members or at least average 20 per event, in case they don't have, like if it's a club that doesn't have memberships, then you got to have an average of 20 per event, and then you can figure out your top 10 guys out of there and send them. But we're just wanting to do it, just as bragging, a North Carolina bragging rights tournament, right? Each trail that's participating will have someone that represents that trail, kind of like in the leadership of the tournament. So each club gets an equal vote on where we go to fish. It gives us an opportunity to, with if you've got clubs all the way to Wilmington, and you've got clubs like Foothills and Queen City that are way west, we've got an opportunity to do a wide variety of lakes, each year. So just trying to give people something to work towards in their AOI race. And, you don't have to finish first to be able to qualify for something. And the one thing we do want, what we struggled with BASS is getting people to go fish that tournament. People would qualify and then not go fish it. And so what we are committed to do is roll it down. Like we really want each club to send 10 people. So, we're going to allow the clubs to roll it down till they can get 10 people that will go fish it. That helps with payouts, right? It helps with when we approach potential sponsors, right? We're guaranteed if there's 5 clubs, we're going to do our best to have 50 people there. Now does the 10 increase to 15? Maybe, but probably not, just because we were struggling to get 15 people to go to BASS. So I'm just not sure what that's about. In some of the Facebook chats today, I wonder if to fish the BASS, you've got to join Bassmaster. You have to join the National Federation. Then you have to join the North Carolina Federation. Now, that's not a huge amount of money, but it's just 3 things plus an entry fee that you have to do to fish that tournament. I don't know if that's what's caused people to not get so excited about BASS. So, with this, it'll just be a flat entry fee. There's no memberships other than your AOI to your club. So,
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I like everything that you just said, and I really like the fact that everybody will have input on what lakes it takes place on. And to be quite honest with you, I think that's probably some of the non-participation in bass is because those are generally in the same area of the state each year. So with this having everybody's input and maybe the lakes changing to, could be in eastern North Carolina once, could be in central, it could be over, toward the western part of the state. But, I think that all that sounds great.
I think we'll definitely try to balance it, right? Not, if you think about it, if you have it in the mountains, if Port City joins, right, then they've got to drive from Wilmington all the way to the mountains. So I definitely think we'll try to do something really central to start out with to make it so somebody's not driving 5 or 6 hours to get there.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you know that it's going to rotate around,
right.
Like I don't have a problem going further if I know the next year it's going to be within an hour. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. As long as everybody knows it's rotating, I don't think people care about the sacrifice to drive further, but it's just that, you don't want to drive further every year. How about that?
That's right. Yeah. And, BASS is going between Norman and High Rock. But I will say this, and I know you were not intending anything when you said that right about the areas, but you know, when I was looking at BASS, even Queen City, which, you know, has this huge membership, right? Like I don't know, where they 150, 160
It's quite a
members
few.
and getting, you know, 125, 130 at every tournament.
Largest grassroots trail in the company or in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, you know, even when it was on Norman last year, they were struggling to get all the people that qualified to go fish. Like it was not a full field at Bass. And I don't understand why, because a lot of people really wanted the Bass kayak thing to take off in North Carolina, right? The BASS. And so I don't know why it was so hard to get people to fish it. But you know, like I said, I thank Vinny for taking it and doing what he's done with it. It's back up and running. You know, with it being open this year, I may go fish it, right? Because it's and I think it's at High Rock this year, so I may go fish it this year. You know, it's last year I didn't really fish any of the CCKF events because I was judging all of them. This year I'm working hard to get external judges so that I can fish a little bit more. But the other thing, as the director, I'd always try to remain like really, really careful. Like I don't want to be the director and win AOI. Not that I have any chance against Hank and Will and Jeremy and Alex and all these guys, but I don't want anybody to view it as I created a trail that I can somehow benefit off of myself.
Yeah.
You know, because I'll be honest with you, if somehow I cheated my way into qualifying for it, I would get to Norman last year and then get skunked. People would realize I was a fraud for getting there anyway.
Yeah, we like you. We like you fishing. So I hope you find some outside judges. I know there's a few people that are offering that I've heard. I can't name off the top of my head, but I know there's some people that are trying to do judging and you know, turn that into a little side business. So
what I did the first year, you know, I did it with Kayak Fishing with Christ, and they're a nonprofit kayak organization, and they offered judging. I had set aside $2 of every angler, like to pay a judge. Now, if you've got 50 anglers, that's $100. You know, you are tied up basically like an entire Saturday. Like you don't have to just sit in front of the computer, but you've got to check it at least once an hour, right, to stay on. If there's an issue with an angler, you want to be able to contact them in a timely manner. And that worked out well. But the guy that was doing the majority of the judging moved away, and he was not able to do that anymore. So if you're watching and you would be willing to judge for a small stipend, you know, reach out to me. Let me know. One thing I was going to do, there's a Tourney X group, and then there's a Tourney X directors group. So one thing I was going to do was post in the Tourney X directors group and say, hey, if you've got a trail and your events are on different weekends than my events, let's swap. I'll judge your events, you judge my events. And then I can take that $2 and put it back into the payouts and not have to give it to a judge. Last year, that money went into AOI and Clash of the Titans to bolster those.
All right. Well, let's give you a chance to shout out socials and sponsors, and then we'll wrap it up, man.
You can find us very easily on Facebook. We've got a page and a group, both called Central Carolina Kayak Fishing. Instagram, the same. Just search for CCKF or Central Carolina Kayak Fishing on Instagram, and that's basically where I'm at. There is a YouTube channel, but it basically just replays the live. That just gives, if somebody's not doesn't have a Facebook page, I broadcast to YouTube so they can watch it there and not have to struggle with Facebook. Sponsors this year, definitely want to give shouts out. So our title sponsor this year is 47 Lures. It's a small custom bait shop based out of Fuquay. And he's our title sponsor. He's also sponsoring upstate kayak anglers in South Carolina, and he's sponsoring Port City. So he's definitely jumped in. He's going to be fishing with CCKF this year. So very, very glad to have him on board. Our AOI sponsor this year is A1 Pest and Wildlife Sanford. So they're a Sanford-based, pest and wildlife company. I can vouch personally for the fact that they can remove bats from your attic very efficiently. It basically, if you're an angler that's considering CCKF, you're within their working radius. They do travel. We have a big fish prize this year that's absolutely free. You do not have to register for it. So the biggest fish turned in on Tourney X at any of our tournaments is going to be rewarded $350 thanks to Amped Outdoors, Amped lithium batteries. And we also have a couple 30 amp batteries and chargers to give away at select events this year. I can't even see them all. Pincushion Tattoo Studio from Greensboro. Robert Ebert fishes CKA and CCKF. He's been a very good sponsor to us for a couple years now in the CKA. Chick-fil-A Townridge Square, which is on Glenwood Avenue. We get gift cards to give away. Roz Team Fishing, which is Frank Rosnos. He's active. He's a corpsman down at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, but he builds custom rods, and he does guided bow fishing events, not fishing for bowfin, but actually using a bow and arrow off of a boat to go after carp or gar or whatever the fish of that area are. Hobie Eyewear have given us a good discount on Hobie sunglasses, and also given us several pairs of Hobie glasses to give away at tournaments. I have started fishing them exclusively, solely for the fact that they float, and every pair of sunglasses that I have lost has been in a lake. I've lost like a pair a year. And so these, floating, at least they'll float and I can come back and grab them with the net. Cashin Rods, very thankful to have Cashin on board with us, as well as several other tours, trails. But we have 10 Cashin Rods to give away. So we'll give away a Cashin Rod at every event, and then one to the Angler of the Year.
Nice.
So definitely looking forward to being able to do that. And I'll just mention too, Cashin actually offered us, they have a trailer, a tournament trailer. So if they have a bass boat tournament, you have the trailer out there with the scales in it. And Matthew, the owner of Cashin, has offered several times that if I ever need to use that trailer for any of our events, it's just, I appreciate it, but we're just, we're not using scales or anything like that. So the trailer, I'd love to give them the advertising of having the trailer there, but it's it would just kind of be there. I think we would just be sitting out there like a big sign, maybe. And then finally, a couple more. Yak Attack, of course, gives us gift certificates every year. They're just a huge supporter of kayak fishing. They definitely see the return in their business, I think. Carolina Pool Boy is sponsoring the tournament this year at Jordan Lake. So if you have a swimming pool and you need, you're tired of trying to get the chemicals right, give him a call. And lastly, Cape Fear River Adventures out of Lillington. They do lazy river floats down the Cape Fear. They do kayak trips, canoe trips, and even I think can set you up with some whitewater rafting. They're sponsoring the Harris tournament this year. So we have a really good suite of sponsors, and we appreciate them. And I look forward to getting able to promote them a little bit more once the tournaments crank up. So.
Awesome. Well, Mitch, thank you so much for coming back on the show and just kind of doing a preview of the season and touched on last season a little bit, and enjoyed it, and looking forward to a great season. And kind of sorry, but not sorry that I won't be as involved as
I know the feeling. But I will say this, well, first off, thanks to Robert. You fished with us several years, been a good friend. Robert has in the past signed up for tournaments knowing that he's not even going to be there just to get money in the payout pool, and that's
there's a
great.
couple of times I think you're setting at like 29. I'm like, oh, we just got to get to 30, and I'm like, I'll sign up for it.
Yeah.
But it's just cycles. It's whatever cycle that you're in. Some years I can fish more, some I can't. And Cam, you'll just be in there this year, and we know you're not going to be able to fish as much, but there's a great reason for that. So, it all cycles around.
I also want people to know, Cam is like the volunteer chaplain for CCKF fishing. And he has had a phone number in the past, right? That if you needed prayer, if you're up against a wall and, you just need to know that somebody's out there, praying for you. That Cam has definitely stepped in and done that. He's led prayers before our tournaments. And we appreciate you for that, Cam. My personal philosophy or whatever, when we talk about our Christianity and our faith, right, we're talking about a relationship that we have directly with God, right? And we're human. And so we want to be selfish with that relationship, and we want to be selfish with that time with God. And probably one of the most impactful things that anybody says to me or does for me is to pray for me, because I view that as you're taking time out of your personal time with God, right? Where you could be, espousing to God, this is the problem that you're facing. But instead, you're taking that time saying, my friend is facing this, right? And the scripture says, where two or more are gathered together, God hears. Now, he always answers a prayer. It's just not always the answer that we want, right? And sometimes people go, well, God never even answered my prayer. He never did anything. That's your answer, buddy. You're praying for something. That's just not that's not where the path he's wanting you to go on at this time, right?
No is an answer.
So just understand, people hear that verse and say, well, that means if two or more people pray for something, then I'm going to get it. Well, God didn't want you to have a 2024 Corvette all the time, or whatever it is that you might have prayed for. But in his wisdom, he knows what you need. And he definitely hears the prayer, right? And he's definitely, when we're brokenhearted, he's brokenhearted. And, that's, like I said, I think that's just, when I'm up against something in my life and someone truly takes the time to pray for me, I don't know of anything that's more valuable, regardless if you can put a dollar amount on it. And so also know that if someone ever posts on Facebook that they need prayers or something, and I answer that, hey, I'm praying for you, I've already prayed before I've typed that answer, because I don't want to fail. I don't want to tell that person I'm praying for them and then in my own ADD world forget it. So I pray first and then tell them, that they're in my prayers. So, but anyway, we appreciate what you do, Cam. I feel safer leading these guys on the water, or hosting these guys on the water, putting these events together, knowing that you and others put angler safety, in prayer. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. All right, Mitch. Well, again, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and we will. It will not be the last time.
Thanks.
And, even Jesus had a fish story.
There you go.
Yeah.
And for those listening to the podcast and wondering where in the world did that just come out of, that's on Mitch's t-shirt. He's showing it off right now.
Yep. You think about it, there's fish are actually pretty prevalent in the Bible, right? Jonah.
They are.
Cast your nets over the side, become fishers of men. I mean, fishing is biblical. So
yes, it is. So get out and do it.
That's right.
All right. Thanks again, Mitch.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Robert, that was a fantastic episode. And we're past that hour and a half mark. So let's
Yeah,
let's
go ahead.
not
Once
dawdle too
once
much.
you close this out, so you can include everybody we need to in your prayer.
All right, 10-4. God, thank you for this opportunity to talk about this tournament trail, and to talk about what's coming up next, to kind of give our predictions and look forward to things that are coming, and talk about the good times that we had last season. Thank you for Mitch, and for the work that he puts into the trail, and for what he means to so many. Thank you for this podcast, and thank you for the person that's listening right now, whether they are somebody who they've already signed up for Angler of the Year in CCKF this season, and they're looking forward to the season, or whether it's somebody in the year 2045 in California. We give you so much thanks for that person, and I pray that you meet them where they are and put on a show in their life. Pray that you extend your healing touch to Misty Wiseman, and bring her through the dark time that she's going through, and bring her back to full health quickly and smoothly. God, we are so very thankful for just the opportunity to talk fishing and talk about you, and we are excited to have a safe and powerful 2024 season in CCKF and on the Faith and Fishing podcast. And it's this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. That is going to do it for this episode, y'all. Y'all take care, and God bless.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Please consider supporting those that support us. Jade's Jigs lead-free finesse tackle. Use promo code FNF10 at jadesjigs.com for 10% off. Save your outdoors. Stop losing your gear. Use promo code FNFP15 at SaveYourOutdoors.com for 15% off. Omnia Fishing. Check out Premium, Premium Pro, and their Ambassador program. Use promo code FNF10 for 10% off at OmniaFishing.com. And if it's your first order, use promo code FNF15 for 15% instead. Mr. B Lure Company. High-quality handmade baits made right here in the U.S. MrBLureCompany.com. Use promo code FaithnFishNPod for 15% off your first purchase. Get outdoors, pedal, and paddle. Check them out at the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or at shopgetoutdoors.com for all your paddling and cycling needs. And Nakwa Adventure Gear, lighting, power, and all the connectors at nakwa.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.